regular meeting to order. First up tonight, we have our agenda. We need to make an approval of the agenda. If there are no changes to the current agenda as listed, I'll seek a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? None opposed. Next up tonight, we have several sets of minutes to approve. We have our July 9th joint meeting with municipalities, and then our July 9th work session, and then our regular meeting from July 16th. If there are no needs to make any changes to those minutes, I'll seek a motion for approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Moving on now to administrative reports. Last weekend was the back to school bash. My wife and I and another couple have been buying all kinds of stuff, and we went down and we ran out of composition notebooks. We made pencil pouches, all kinds of things, markers, crayons, everything. We were able to give out probably 2,000 composition notebooks and 100 pencil pouches for kids ready to go to school. It was amazing. I think they had 800 kids total. They did 200 haircuts for free, and I think it's going to get bigger next year because every year it's gone up. So it's the third time, and if you have anybody in need, just contact Dr. Ayers, and we can find a way to get everything to them. So, any other commissioner reports? So, moving on now to our county manager, Kevin King, and his report.
I don't have any written report, but I did want to bring you up to speed on a couple projects we've got going. The first one is the emergency management building that we have going up out at the emergency management and 911 center. We've got the excavation completed. The building's been ordered, so the foundation should be going in probably in the next couple of weeks. And our crew is doing that work for the site work, and then another building crew's coming in and finishing up for the steel building. So that should be completed this fall. The house behind the library that's adjacent to the parking area, that I think this has been an ongoing topic for quite a while. We are getting bids for that. I had to bring in Neo just to look and make sure there's no material we have to abate. And so looking at that and then getting the contractor going to be taking that out. And also we're looking at the feasibility of keeping the steps where we can have access to the bottom street. So that's all I've got tonight.
Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Yes.
All right, we have Steve Steinbruick. Mr. Steinbruick.
Thank you. I tried for phonetic spelling there.
I see that. That's awesome. I appreciate that.
Evening. I'm talking tonight to voice a concern about the process used to select and appoint members to the Jackson County Public Library Board of Trustees. I spoke with Chairman Letson briefly after your last meeting, and I followed up with an email. I want to be clear that I'm not speaking or criticizing Ms. James. Absolutely not. Quite hopeful to be a positive addition to the board, and that our experience will provide a useful perspective to their work. However, it appeared that except for commissioners and those who knew in advance of Ms. James' pending appointment and who attended and spoke in her support, no one else, including the county librarian or the Jackson County Library Board, was aware of who was under consideration for this important position. There was no information attached to the agenda, and it was, whether by plan or oversight, was surprise. Following a long history of nominating trustees with demonstrated interest and history of support for the library and the recommendation of the county librarian, it appears that self-nomination and support of local political leaders are now the primary requirements. Other recommendations were not mentioned, nor would there seem to be any known criteria used to judge a candidate's qualifications or interest. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm left with the impression that inadequate attention is being paid to these appointments, or the advice of those who are charged with advising and running the library. Thank you for your time.
Moving on now to new business, we have tax settlement report from May 1st to June 30th. Ms. Hanson.
Good evening. I'm just going to give you an overview for the 2023 settlement report. For the Jackson County general taxes, the charges and credits were $45,185,028. The uncollected taxes were $404,119. The delinquent taxes, charges, and credits were $1,173,832. Uncollected is $543,426. For the Jackson County solid waste fees, charges and credits were $3,025,393, with $68,447 uncollected. The delinquent solid waste fees, charges and credits were $151,966, with $74,681 uncollected. And then the delinquent motor vehicle taxes. This is the last year that we're going to have those on there because this is from 2013. And that the charges and credits were $11,067.81, and uncollected was $5.70. Any questions?
I have a question for Ms. Fox. Did the solid waste fees that we increased the amount cover the enterprise fund and meet the needs of that?
They have.
Okay. Was there any excess?
Not
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the tax settlement report?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Bryson?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Chairman Letson?
Yes. Moving on now to the report to citizens and Christina Hunter.
Good evening. I'm going to briefly introduce myself to the folks that don't know me in the room. My name is Christina Hunter, and I am a senior at Mars Hill University. I am studying economics and finance. And this summer, I had the pleasure of rewriting and reformatting the report to the citizens. So what the goal of this report is to do is to take and interview department heads and spend some time, usually half a day or a day, with the department heads or someone who is well versed in what goes on in the department, and to discuss the services that that department provides to the citizens and to the county as a government. So one thing that I really enjoyed about this process is the overwhelming support and the overwhelming dedication that all of these departments have to the citizens of Jackson County. I think one thing that this county does very well at is take the time to walk people who are curious through the process and take a little bit time to answer all the questions. I wanted to highlight a few departments just briefly, and then I'll be done. I wanted to thank both the county manager's office for the time and dedication they gave to me and allowing me to have this internship. I know it was a little strange and a little last minute, and I know I could not stay usually the full duration that a normal intern would, but I wanted to talk through some of the things that I did not know. I want to say a special thank you to both of the tax departments, not just because they're here tonight, but because they took the time to answer some questions I had and really talked through how the revenue works for the county. And I would really like to say a special thank you to the emergency management and the sheriff's office, because both of those took me through departments that usually I, as a citizen, do not have the privilege of walking through. Both of them took the time to show me every small detail of what goes on, and they allowed me to spend time with them. So I really enjoy and am very grateful for this opportunity. Do you all have any questions for me?
You're a senior this year, so you graduate in spring of
Yes.
2025. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Good evening.
Thank you for your work.
And are these copies available for?
Yes, it is published. It is published online, and there are a few paper copies in the county manager's office.
Great, thank you. Moving on now to our Green Street intersection safety project resolution. Mr. King.
I'll show one more word about Christina. She did a fantastic job. She was there, and I do want to thank her for all her hard work. So, did a great job. So I think we talked about this resolution back in July, and y'all had requested further information, which we've sent to you from our emergency management, also some more information from NCDOT. Have talked a little bit to Cody Whittle, who is the new district engineer, and kind of, this has been a non-traditional process, is what's been happening with asking county commissioners for resolutions and support of a particular item with DOT. And so I think some of this has gotten left behind between the district engineer switching, a new safety engineer coming on. And so I think after talking to him, this is a new protocol. This is, I think they'd gotten some issues in another county where citizens did get some pushback on some certain projects, and the DOT is now requesting on any safety modification for county commissioners to put their voice in, whether it be for or against. So this is for your consideration. I know there's several people have voiced concerns probably to you independently. Also, I think there's some written comments. I think you have one on your desk tonight. So it's just for your consideration. So I don't have anything else to add.
I've got a few friends that are on the fire department there, and they've said if they're going to close that off, if they could at least put the little orange or the little yellow things up that look like little pieces of PVC, so the fire trucks, the medic, so they can make a left out of there, but to where the public can't. The public's got to go right. Do they plan on continuing with this project?
I'm pretty sure whatever comes out of this, they will probably still do the project.
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
gonna ask.
Yeah.
If we don't give them this letter, they're gonna continue to do the project.
I would suspect so, yeah, because of their safety formula.
Now, can we request that they do that? Put you know what I'm talking about, the little PVC pipes up that
This is your resolution, so we can make that addition in there if it is a.
yeah, because that's one thing a few of my friends requested that are with the fire department.
Well-
Because for them to go out and make a right and then go all the way down, make a U, that's critical time. I mean, even if it's not that much time, it is critical time.
Yeah.
So,
Problem that I have, this is in my district, and then one that they just done in Whittier, several that they done in Whittier was in my district. And this wasn't but a few months ago. They didn't reach out and ask us for a resolution or anything. And there was more feedback on those projects than this one. Now, the safety part of it is a big deal. But it just bothers me that they'll ask for one location, but not all. So is this what started like recently, and it's going to be the new normal for the new standard going forward
Yes.
for all DOT projects or safety projects?
okay.
I'd mentioned to Mr. King, when I first heard about this, that I was dead set against it. And I have to say it was a selfish, personal decision point that I was making because I'm moving there in 36 months on Greens Creek. And I was just selfishly thinking how easy it'd be just to take my trash and to go straight across. And then I've only had 2 individuals speak negatively to me, no text message, no phone calls. And the 2 that I found that were against it weren't really dead set against it. It was about inconvenience, and they were family members that I'm going to be my neighbors when I move down. Had I not asked them their opinion, they would have never said it, even though it was in the front page, I believe, of the paper, that little section. So after reflecting on the safety part of it, my conscience wouldn't let me, if it's an accident and a death was there or just a tragedy of any kind, I stood up here and said, no, shame on me. That's how I look at it. Just my personal, and I went from a 180 from saying no to let's be safe. Sometimes, it's like taking medicine. It might taste bad, but it's going to help you out in the long run.
Do we know what, I know that they're talking about some wrecks and stuff. Do we know what set this off, the project off? Concerns from the community or just?
I don't know. I mean, it's going on in every county. It's not just in Jackson. They're looking at different roadways in multiple communities. So other commissioner boards have been reacting the same way as we have. With these.
Probably based on traffic count and accidents in that area.
Well, yeah, Greens Creek is a populated area.
Yeah.
Sure is.
And it seems to me like if they're gonna do this project, they go ahead and put a 2-lane bridge in on Greens Creek. Same bridge has been there since
Yeah.
1950s maybe. So, or I don't even know.
This is a lot more cost effective than the 2-lane bridge. Those suckers are going pretty high right now. I mean, I use the when summer hits, I don't make left turns. I always go right in Cashers because I can always go down, make a U-turn without 2 lanes of traffic coming at me at unknown speeds, and I think that's always the safer option, especially when you're crossing 4 lanes. It's just and you have the recycling center traffic there as well. It's a recipe for disaster, and I'm for this.
Pretty much all left turning lanes or turns, they're doing away with that, it seems like. I mean, if you think about it, for a while you don't really know of any. I don't know of any more really in Jackson County. I may be wrong, but at least on a main highway like that.
And a corner.
Yeah. So no, I think it's
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented with a request for the descriptive safety poles, or if that is doable for the states.
and I'll second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson?
Yes.
Chairman Letson?
Yes. Moving on now, we do have a couple of planning board positions available. Right now, we've gotten one person for Cashers District, and that is Michael Cox. And I know Michael personally. He's served on other boards as well, and I think he would be a great fit. And I think our planning department is excited to have him. So I'll make a motion to nominate Michael Cox to I'll let Mr. Jones make that nomination.
I've been procrastinating on my appointment for some time. A former Jackson Planning Board member expressed interest once she had to have back surgery and give her some time to recover. She has not contacted me again, and I know her retirement age is a little higher than mine, and I took that as maybe a disinterest in her coming back on the planning board. So Michael Cox did reach out to me as well and expressed interest, and he does have experience on the Cashers Planning Council. And so with that said, I'd make a motion to appoint him for my appointment in District 4.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, moving on now. I don't think we have any, we do have a need for closed session? Or do we want to do that in the work session? Okay. Well, any questions from the press tonight? Okay. With no further items on the agenda, I'll seek a motion for dismissal. And a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. We are adjourned.
Have a 10-minute break.
Have a 9-minute break. First up tonight, we've got Mr. Poston from Planning on UDO ordinance amendments. Mr. Poston.
Good evening. Just here tonight to go over a few amendments to the subdivision regulation that Planning Department and Planning Board on. They're really technical in nature and just cleaning up the document a little bit. So most of what we're going to talk about tonight are going to be pretty mundane type of changes. But really, it deals with how we build roads and the types of materials we use, and making sure that our text in the ordinance matches the text in the tables, and cleaning that up, and then clarifying. As you remember, several months ago we adopted campground ordinances, and we referenced some road standards. We wanted to clean that up a little bit, and where smaller campgrounds had to start the paving requirements. So we wanted to make sure that we were clear that level 1 campgrounds under 15 units would not have to pave necessarily unless the road grade is greater than 15%. So that's just a few of the changes that we're looking at this evening, and just to give you a better understanding of what we're really talking about. And so there's that level 1 campground, talking about the paving portion, but most of it comes into this table. On number 11 and number 12 in the standards, we talk about this section of road grades in excess of 15%, shall be paved. And this statement in this context, it conflicted with the table down here, this paving surface requirement that said, regardless of percentage of slope, you have to pave minor residential, and major residential streets. So the text gives you the impression the only time you have to pave those roads is when it exceeds 15%, which really isn't the case. You have to pave those roads based on the table. So that's the main change, is to make sure that the road size and the minor residential, and major residential roads are classifications that we use for larger subdivisions. So the larger the subdivision, the more robust the road network should be to serve it. That means you have more lots, more people using those roads. So you don't want it to be on a 10-foot wide gravel road. You want it to be on a paved road with shoulders and drainage appropriate as that subdivision grows in size, and the number of lots being served. And so that's what the majority of the technical corrections are. The other corrections come down into types of materials that we use in building roads. And really, the main change that you see is the STBC, which is a type of soil-based base code course. And nobody uses a soil-type base course anymore to build roads. They all use an ABC. So we're just taking out some old references to some types of materials that were used previously, and we're referencing back to NCDOT's base course requirements. So just to solidify those, that is the majority of what we're doing, and just talking about how we test roads for strength. So the planning board has had a public hearing regarding this. Nobody showed up to the public hearing, and it was the amendments have been recommended to the board of commissioners unanimously. We would look to hold a public hearing on September 17th at 6:20 p.m. Understanding that's going to be the meeting will be up in Cashers, and we would look to call that meeting if the board's willing at the board's next meeting here in August. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
No, I don't have any questions for Michael. Anyone else?
It's a point, so not so much a question. So if citizens wanted to speak to this matter, they would have to come 45 minutes to Cashers.
Yes, and certainly, yes, they could. I think that they could also get their comments to the clerk as well. But at this point, we haven't had a lot of interest. Usually, they're technical corrections in nature, but certainly, yes, they would have to come up at that time.
would there'd be a public notice in the papers regarding this?
Correct. We would advertise.
Could you put some language that, if you cannot make it to that meeting physically, comments to the clerk would be received and talked about amongst you and the commissioners?
Absolutely. I think I can work with the clerk to make sure that that is referenced in the materials. Thank you.
Moving on now to Department of Aging report and Eddie Wells. Clapping from the audience over here.
I think everybody was impressed how quick that was.
It
huh?
was. That was record time.
Always has more material.
All right. Well, thank you, Chairman Lansman, other commissioners, for having us today. It's always a pleasure to get here and talk a little bit about what we do at the Department on Aging. First thing I'll say is we appreciate the support from the Board of Commission. You know, we have other counties that come down sometimes and know how we do what we do, and you know that we do it the way we do, and a robust program offering, and an absolutely great facility. And we always tell people it comes and starts at the top, from the support from the Board of Commission, the administration, and all the other departments. We have an amazing staff and some great volunteers, but we appreciate all that you guys do. What this is too is, we at the end of each fiscal year we put an impact report together, and that is, for us to kind of share with the community things that we do. And I thought it'd be appropriate for this because it'll have some impact. That'll show what we do kind of in an annual year, but also a little bit of information on, what the programs are. So anyone that's seeing this can, if they see something that's good for them, that we can help them, we definitely want them to know about it. Department on Aging, obviously we call it a facility Department on Aging. We get called a lot of things. We always tell people, well, you're saying good things about us, it's fine. But a lot of people call it the senior center. If you think about really, what we do, the Department on Aging would be the facility, and then kind of the umbrella of services for the county. We do have 2 senior centers. One of them is located within the Department on Aging, which is a lot of our activities that we'll go into. But we always kind of term it as the Department on Aging. But we always tell people, say whatever you like as long as it's good. A little bit, just our mission statement: one stop of resource center dedicated to providing services and support to the aging population. Our mission is we aim to provide the highest care for seniors as possible. I know that's very vague, but that's really what we're trying to do. A little bit about the Department on Aging. We opened in 2009, so this November will be 15 years, believe it or not. We do have 2 other locations. We have a Casher Senior Center. We have a wood shop where we do all the prefabs with our ramps, and we have a wood lot for our firewood program. Big thing, we have, I like to say, the largest volunteer program in the county. We have over 600 volunteers every year that help in all of our services. Council on Aging Advisory Board, that's kind of the board of directors for the Department on Aging, is an advisory board, so they help us kind of a sounding board for all of our programs and services. Now, I mentioned team effort. We have an amazing staff and appreciate all the support from everyone. So this impact would be for last fiscal year, July 1 through June 30th. These are some of our services here. I'm going to go into these individually. We have 18 programs that we run out of the Department on Aging, and that's what we're going to quickly cover for everyone. Project Care, basically that is our ramps and home modification program. That is where we're doing everything, mostly building ramps. We also do some stair projects. We do handrails. We go into bathrooms and put, grab bars in there for people that need them. You see, last year we did 50 ramps. We typically average between 50 and 60. We're a little short-staffed last year, but I'm excited that we were still able to get 50 ramps, and a lot of that was from Public Works that helped us tremendously since we were pretty short-staffed last year. As you can see, 50 ramps, some deck repairs, some stairs, handrails, 103 volunteers for that program last fiscal year. 835 volunteer hours. But you can see from the photos there, we're basically just helping people that have mobility issues get in and out of their homes. We also have a fan program. We get money from Duke Energy every year that does box fans. We actually got a little additional this current year. So we have box fans right now that are available. But last year we was able to give 23 fans out to seniors in need. Project Fire, so this would be like the sister program of Project Care. So this is where we're cut, splitting, and delivering firewood to seniors in need. We start this typically in September for deliveries, and then we run it all the way through March. So it spans the entire cold weather season. You can see last year we did 315 firewood deliveries, so it's cut, split, and delivered. That's actually a record for our agency. So got a lot of firewood out last year. The wood is 100% donated. So people call from the community. We're very clear that we are not a tree trimming service. We're not clearing trees for people, but if it's something where it's down and pretty close to a house and it's good hard wood, we'll try to get it. And Tom's helped us some with that too, Commissioner Shredling. And it's a great program, helps a lot of people. You can see last year we had 225 volunteers in that program for just over 1,100 hours. Jackson County Senior Center. So this is a senior center that's within the Department on Aging. So a lot of our activities and classes. You can see we had 948 participants for classes and events. We do a lot of health and wellness, and that's everything from health and wellness classes to seminars for seniors to come to. You can see we had 590 participants for health and wellness. Neither of these numbers include guests. That'd be someone that just stops by that wants to kind of see what we're doing. We don't add those into the numbers. And then we also do a free tax aid service every year, during tax season. So we serve 695, but the ARP actually comes and provides that service for us, which is great. And then, we've been doing virtual ever since the pandemic. We found out, we started doing virtual programs. We've continued doing those ever since. We still have people that like to log in and do things from their home, and that's fine. So we kind of do a hybrid thing. We have them in person, and on Zoom. You can see from the photo there too, that's kind of an example where they're doing it in front of the TV, but we still have a lot of seniors there around doing it in person. We are certified Senior Center of Excellence. That's something we go through every 5 years. It's a 5-year certification. We've got that distinction, which is the highest distinction you can get in the state of North Carolina. We've had that 3 times now, so over 15 years. So the staff work really hard to keep that certification. Senior Games, we also host the Smoky Mountain Senior Games. So that's a partnership with us and Jackson County Parks and Recreation. We also partner with Graham County Senior Center. They don't have a program over there, so they come over and participate with us. You can see there's 99 different activities. So there's a whole list of activities. I couldn't name them all, but it's all the things you can think of. That's a sport activity. We pretty much have it for Senior Games. What we're trying to do is just get seniors active in this program, and hopefully they'll continue to be active. Last year we had 98 participants for local senior games, and we had 20 that went to the state level. So, and then every other year, if you went at the state level, you actually go to nationals, and we had a national champion, I want to say about 5 years ago. So it's a pretty fun thing for them. Our Care and Hand Support Services, we gave out, in this program, over just under 6,000 pieces of information. That's if people are calling us. We always tell people to call us, and we can provide the information for you. Options counseling is, say, if you had a family member that, needed something, maybe you've got a family member that's not doing well and you want to find out about services, we bring the entire family in, and we go through all the services and help do referrals. See, we have 556 services that we, kind of refer people to. So we're kind of a hub of information for aging services. In-home list, that is a list of providers that are paid individually from people that pick up the in-home list. So basically, if someone wanted to be hired, they'd come to us. They go through a background check. Once that's approved, they come in and do a training with us. They come on the list, and then say if I needed to hire someone for my mom, I would come to the Department on Aging. I would, sign the MOU, pick up the list, and then the Department on Aging's out of the financial picture at that point. They call each other and we tell them to do their own due diligence, and then they hire those people off the list. It's worked pretty well for those that just are able to pay and need to find services and need help in their homes. Project Lifesaver, this is partnered with Jackson County Sheriff's Office. It's a LoJack tracking device for those that have dementia. So, if you have a loved one with dementia, typically they like to wander. So we put bracelets on them that we provide at no cost. Then, if something happens and they can't find their loved one, they call 911, activate the search system, and typically, if it's happened very quickly from the location, we can find them within 30 minutes. We've used it a few times, and it works well as long as they're notified early. So, a really good program. And then we have a lending closet too. Lending closet is things like lift chairs and walkers, and we have some shower chairs in there. So we're always giving those out at no cost to the community. Congregate Nutrition. So these are our dining sites. We have two of them. One of them is in the Department on Aging, and then the other one is up at the Castro Senior Center. You can see we have lots of events. We do some type of monthly event. Some type of event every month. But what really shows the impact is, over 13,000 meals in that program. So a lot of food going out to help people. But what we like to do is, it's about nutrition, but we want people to come in and congregate and have a good time, and then maybe walk down the hall or take an exercise class. So we're trying to get them involved in everything that we have. We also have an insure program too. That's last year we delivered over 177 cases. That would be an additional 4,200 meals. So that's not added into the Congregate Nutrition numbers there. Meals on Wheels, great program. I think everybody's aware of what Meals on Wheels is. This is a huge program in our community. We are always in the look for volunteers in this program. It takes a lot of volunteers to get meals out all over Jackson County, and we all know Jackson County is, it's pretty broad and long distance between tip to tip. So we're always looking for volunteers in that program. You can see last year we did just under 31,000 meals in that program to 214 homebound seniors. 103 volunteers. Can't say enough about our volunteers in these programs. They help make us matter, and we're always willing to help whenever needed. March for Meals on Wheels is really just a promotional thing we do in March to help bring awareness. Also, we have Animals. So Animals is, we found out a long time ago, if you've got if you're homebound and you have an animal, and that's basically the meal, your main meal you get every day, most likely you're going to feed that to your animal and all of them. So for those that have dogs and cats, we send dog and cat food to them. Really good program. And then we do Manna food boxes. We did those this past year until they discontinued some of that, and we wrote some grants to help with some fresh produce boxes that we just did for Meals on Wheels. So always trying to find a way to reach out to them as much as possible. SHIP is our Seniors Health Insurance Information Program. This is where we're counseling Medicare beneficiaries on everything Medicare. Last fiscal year, we had 546 beneficiaries, and from them coming in and getting counseling, we saved them over $1.5 million by making changes to their plan. So, and that's free counseling for them. So we're not trying to sell them anything. We're basically just saying, come in and we'll help you make an educated guess on the best plan for you. So we have volunteers in that program too. You can see 3 of them serve 72 hours. Adult Day Program. This is a drop-off service for those that have a family member that likely has dementia or some type of dementia. Typically, most of them have Alzheimer's. They can have some kind of cognitive impairment too. But basically, it's a drop-off service. They come, their family members can come and participate in activities. Typically helps them with their cognitive state of mind, just being around like-minded individuals. But I always tell people, if you want to feel an impact, walk into that program for about 15 minutes, and they're all in there singing and having a good time. And it's a win for the participants that are in it. But it's also a win for the those that are in a caregiving situation, because they need that respite time to go to work or just have a break. So it's a really good program. We do partner a lot with WCU and SEC for students coming in, which the seniors love that. And you can see we had 38 families that had loved ones in that program last year, and served them also 3,500 meals. Senior Christmas boxes is one of my favorite things we do. That's where we cut, split, and or where we deliver Christmas boxes to the seniors in need. You know, this is a very much a community-driven program. We get people that come in and donate everything that we need for these boxes. A lot of it's toiletry items, things that you would need in your homes, and we put them in these wrap milk crate boxes and just take them out all over the community. Jackson County Sheriff's Office has been helping with this a lot the last few years, and also the GIS system too. They're mapping a lot of the routes for us. So good program. You see 985 boxes delivered last December. A really good program, and you'll see a picture there of the chamber. The chamber has been really involved with this since for many years, and they get a lot of businesses to donate. A lot of the county departments donate. So just a good program that the entire community comes together on. Casher Senior Center. This is our senior center for the Cashers side of things. Basically, it's kind of like a satellite location for those that are on the southern end. We have lots of activities. We do field trips, all the things we do, with our senior center at the Department on Aging. It's also a nice location for us if we need to meet someone in the southern end of the county. We have a location for that. Lots of good things going up there. You can see we had 132 seniors participate last year. Hands on Jackson. This is a big community day appearing event we do every year. This is put on by the Hands on Jackson Advisory Committee. I help coordinate it. It's not really just a Department on Aging program. The entire community comes together. We're actually right now looking for projects for this program. I'd say majority of what we do is helping seniors in this program with cleaning gutters and yard maintenance and such, and we build ramps. Great program. Community comes out. We typically get about 200 volunteers for this program, and we just go out in the community and do a lot of good in one day. So, really good program that's going on now. So the one for this year, this fall, will be October 10th. Special events, several of these. Mobile Free Pharmacy, we just did that, gave out 900 bags of medicine. We have an elder abuse awareness walk every year. 90's birthday party we do every year. Samaritan's Feet event where we give out free shoes to seniors. Volunteer recognition, we always do a big recognition event for all of our volunteers. So just lots of things going on. And then lastly, I'll say too, just volunteers. This is, we talk about, we depend on our volunteers. Really, when you look at the statistics, last year we had 730 volunteers serve just over 14,000 hours. So if you take the volunteer independent sector volunteer of time, it's just under $500,000 it would cost if we were paying these volunteers to do this service. So, they definitely make us matter, like I said, and we couldn't do what we do without them. Any questions? That's our contact information there. We put a lot of stuff on Facebook. We have a newsletter, but just again, want to thank you guys for all the support, and thank our staff and all the other county departments for all they do for us.
I got a comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I was on your board for 10 years, and I saw such great, it's one of the most rewarding boards to be on with what is given back to the community. And when you spoke earlier at the beginning of this and talked about, you thanked us and the administration, I knew this slide on the volunteers and hours was huge. It was huge back then, but it's grown much more when I was there 7-8 years ago. But I can almost reverse the recognition to where the volunteers up here and we kind of come in second, with and administration. And also, you're humbled in the Anna meals. I recall the nutrition Karen, she's retired, I believe.
Yeah, Karen Davis.
Karen Davis. She came up with the idea because people were giving their meals to their dogs, or me part of it, and she came up with that idea, and it was no other council and agent, if you correct me if I'm wrong, had that concept. We created it. Mr. Wells's staff created that idea, and it was a hit, and it solved two problems. And some of these seniors are actually very tight on budget, on fixed income, so this extra little dog or cat food goes a long way, and also the nutrition part for a senior. But I just want to congratulate you, and I know you put a lot of emphasis on the volunteer and that volunteer luncheon.
Yeah.
that, or a meal that you do. It might be a dinner, but congratulations on such an efficient way to run a much-needed department.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Runs like a Swiss watch. Like you said, it starts at the top.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate it.
you are at the top, right?
Well, I mean, I guess you guys are at the top.
Top, you run the place. You do a great job, Eddie.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
Appreciate what you do.
Yeah.
Y'all put in a rent for my grandmother, I guess it was last year, so
Yeah.
she was one of those, I guess, 50.
Yeah.
So, and she loves that, and it just means so much for what y'all do. Your whole staff out there for what you do for the seniors.
Yeah, they work very hard.
Yeah, they sure. Y'all, all y'all do. So we sure appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
He can take a little more time if he wants to.
I know. You want to post them? I went way longer.
That's next. We have permitting and code enforcement report, and Mr. Elders, code enforcement director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
First, I'd like to say, before I get started, can't say enough about Brother Eddie and what he does. I've watched it, did their initial inspections on that building and watched the programs grow. And if you haven't been out there during the day, you need to go. They've had a lot of heat pump change outs lately, and I've been out there a lot, and it's a beehive. There's a million things going on in there at one time. So I always enjoy going out there. Thank you for having me. When we asked to get on board with these, I was wholeheartedly in favor of that. And for those of you that know Tiffany in my cashier's office, she put this presentation together. I can't take any credit for it. This is all Tiffany. I'll do good to get us scrolling through it. She said I'm a low-tech redneck, that's what she calls me. But thank you for having us. Our department, basically we have 19 full-time employees, currently have 2 part-time employees. Annual budget $1.7 million, about 55 to 60% is what we usually average for our permit fee revenue. You did grant us a pretty significant fee increase for this next fiscal year, so I think that'll improve a little bit. We enforce all the state building codes, flood prevention ordinance, sediment control ordinance, a few other Jackson County ordinances that regulate new development. And we also do all these same things for all of the towns in the county. We do building inspections, fire inspections, floodplain administration, erosion control for all the municipalities in the county due to interlocal agreement. I'm just going to hit the highlights of this. I think most of y'all know what most of these things are, but our erosion and sediment control, we deal with new development, and you'll see when we get a little farther down, we deal with a lot of complaints about erosion and sediment control. Floodplain, we deal with a good bit of that. Basically, most of our floodplains along Tuckasegee River. I will give you a heads up. I've been in initial meetings, and I believe it's October when they'll release the preliminary updated maps. Scotts Creek and the Tuckasegee River are going to be affected a pretty good bit. So, we all won't hear as much as the town boards of Dillsboro and Silva, I don't think. I have a meeting with Dillsboro next week to go over theirs, and there's pretty significant changes for them. We also do all the building permits for new construction, additions, things like that. And then fire inspections, one that gets forgotten a good bit. We do the state has a general statute to mandate fire inspections. Most all businesses are mandated to be inspected at least every 3 years. We don't always hit that goal, but we're not the only county in the state that can't hit it. It's staffing is almost impossible when you do it like we do. In larger places, the fire inspectors are stationed at firehouses, and paid firemen do it. And it's just a little easier for them to get to all of them. But I have to pull my fire inspector off quite often to help me with plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and some other inspections. It's been hard to keep that filled. But we do the important, most safety ones we do. We hit the restaurants, we hit the paper mill, places like that. We hit them on their schedule. And we do all the schools, both public, private, and charter. We do all the schools twice a year. So we do them in the summer, and then we try to arrange to do them as much as we can over their breaks in the winter, just because it's easier to get into all the places we need to get into when school's not in session. Land development applications. This was put in since 2007 when the board in place at that time adopted the subdivision regulations, steep slope ordinance. That at the same time, the smallest ordinance they adopted was one page called the Land Development Compliance. I believe that was titled. And basically what it said was the first thing you have to do before you get any kind of building permit in the county is get a land development permit. If we were a zoned county, it would be your zoning permit quite often, quite honestly. But also if you're just doing a minor little grading project, it's just covering that minor grading project if it's less than a half acre. But that's what triggers our software to let you do the other permits. That's why when you hear and the ladies will abbreviate on the phone, so you need to do an LDA first, and that's what they're talking about. What that does, once they get your application, they put it to one of my review officers, and they go through and make sure you're not in the floodplain, make sure, your site plan meets what you're doing for grading, make sure if it needs to go to zoning, that's where we send it to zoning, whether it's Cashers, Sylva, anywhere like that. So we work our way through that with a land development permit. Then once it's approved, then you can go on to file for your other permits. That's basically what this is going to tell you, some different ways. We also go over stream buffers with them at that time if there's a stream on their property. All that's done during that land development review. So sometimes people think it's just a trivial thing. Why do we have to do it? It's a very important step in what we do to get them started on the right path. Also, recently, I think it was, not that recent, about 2018, I came before the board and asked if we could put in our ordinance that the very first inspection on a job site had to be an erosion first inspection, a first erosion inspection. Because we were finding that the erosion inspection we were doing, the main one we were holding them up on was the last one before they could get a CO. And a building would be built, and the problem would be around behind the house, and they couldn't get their machine around there, and there were all kinds of issues. So most of them have gotten used to that. And so in other words, when they get a new permit for a new home, they can't get a footing inspection, they can't get a temporary pole inspection, they can't get any of those inspections until our erosion officers are out there first, and basically the site's stable. Now, it's not totally completed, but the slopes are stable. There's a mud mat of large stone or something, even if it's entering on the main highway, a lot of things like that, they check those things off. And then they can call in and schedule there. So if you get those complaints, yes, we do hold them up, but it's saved us a ton of work. And at that same time, we also added in there, so our state erosion control, the model ordinance, they want us to go through a formal process and issue an NOV, a notice of violation. We don't issue many of those, and I'll tell you why. And that's why you'll hear people that get on the internet and they read a little bit on the website and they say, why don't I see any more notices of violation? If I issue a formal notice of violation, which we sent my certified mail and hand delivered, that person has 30 days to respond, and it's usually their attorney that responds. And then they have at least 30, 60 more days to fix the problem. In the meantime, the mud's still running in the river. Okay. Also, the one time we went, all the way down the path to court and mediation in Boston, Missouri, we had a dam break on a pond. The total fines were $300,000. They went through mediation, got them down to $150,000, and then Darlene had to send that check to the state. We didn't even get to keep the fines, and we did all the work. So it's not a good model for us the way we work. So what we had put in place is they put in the ordinance the authority for us to stop inspections on the job. If the contractor's not getting inspections, he's not getting paid. And the folks at the state, every time they come up and do our audit, why don't we see more notices of violation? That's just a waste of paper and time, quite honestly. We get results much quicker by holding inspections. I just want y'all to know that if you get a call from somebody that says, I don't see notices of violation in your public documents or something like that. So we do go out a good bit. And you can see just some samples here, different sites. Some of you recognize some of these. One on the top right was High Hampton Golf Course, and it was going through. That's the largest single erosion control project we've ever done. There were 200 and something acres of disturbance. It was huge. The critical watershed, the Horse Pasture River was right under that, and I can't thank enough the fellow I talked to come back part-time, Steve Beasley, because he was there every day in terrible weather for about a year and a half. I mean, he was on that job every single day. And he got a lot of kudos from the state when he'd come over to check them out. You can see some other ones. That one big, large sediment basin, that's one that's done very well correctly at the bottom right. We love to see that. But the sites are all different. Just they're different things. That one right there in the top left, that was up at some of the apartments around Cullowhee. I believe that's those across from that's the landings. That's an underground stormwater retention that's required by the Cullowhee ordinance for stormwater retention. So they did a pretty good job on that one. This was also in some of the apartments, I believe, that one on the top right. And I think both those road pictures in the bottom are in the Cashers area. Coming on down, these are some flooding pictures. Take some shots. You'll notice the date and timestamp. Just wanted to tell you, for those of you who maybe do not know about it, we instituted something in the R5000 project was going in, and the bridge and the road through to SCC through there, and they were hauling dirt everywhere in the county. And basically the DOT dirt was getting complaints to us, and it should have been DOT monitoring that. And they kept saying, well, our project's fine. So we started what we called our River Watch program. Every working business day, unless I'm very short-staffed, my erosion officers take pictures from Swain County line to the forks of the Tuckasegee River, and they will go farther if they see mud in the river there. But they stop at every large stream confluence and they take pictures and date and time it. Also, if they see mud, like in the bottom right picture, you can see there's 2 days apart, and it's below the track at Western. There's 2 days apart. The day on the left it was fine. The next day there was sediment that was coming off one of their dorm projects. Again, since that was supervised by the state, the state keeps saying we don't have any issues. So we just started sending the pictures. And a few years ago, when Mr. Wooten was on board, he actually got me out there with a meeting with the chief engineer and we showed him these pictures. And the DOT finally started saying, well, maybe we need to look at our program, look at it, because they just kept saying we're in compliance. We don't have any bad reports. So we just started taking those pictures, and it's been a very IT set up a special server for us. We've saved every one of them their date and time stamped, so we can show them that. We do have one fellow in the cashier's area. He doesn't run the river, obviously, but he goes to several problem locations and takes pictures every day, just in case. Flood permitting, I think most of you are familiar. Our flood maps. It's starting to be a snapshot of Dillsboro there, where the dam is. A lot of that changed initially. New maps were done right after the dam removal. And then there was an extensive study of Scotts Creek from where it enters the river all the way back up through the town of Sewell, and there will be some changes coming this fall is when the preliminary come out. I'd say it'll be 3 to 5 years before it's fully adopted though. But we're starting the education process now. Here's some more flooding examples. We'll try to take some pictures when we see this stuff. The one on the top left was Christmas Day in 2019. I was up there that. Cutler Fire Department rescue squads were wading through those mobile homes over there and getting people out on Christmas Day with their gifts and everything in a life raft. And I was up there the next day, 2 days later, when the water went down to get the power back on. So that was a pretty bad one that day. You can see Brett shot. Bottom left, those of you living Cashers, that's a really good picture of the Cashers car wash on Frank Allen Road on a really bad day. So that was when the lake backed up. That's one of the worst ones I've ever seen there. The one there, bottom right, I believe it's on Canyon Fork, where they just had their driveway go right through the creek there, and it got up over there. It was a low bridge, actually, excuse me. Building permits, you see several types. Most of you know what these are. I'm just going to hit a couple of them. When you see new single-family homes attached, that's basically has been duplexes up to now. If it went more than a duplex, it was called multifamily. They changed the building code October 1st of this past year, that you can now do up to 4 units in the residential code, and it'll still be considered a new single family attached. It won't be a multi-family home like a condo or apartment building. We do additions and renovations. Manufactured homes, of course. Under manufactured homes, I'd like to see the last one, which is our camper trailers. I honestly wish I'd never heard the word tiny home, but we deal with that an awful lot now. People want to get a storage building turned into a home. They can get a storage building, they can fix it up a little bit. We can't give it a certificate of occupancy as a single family dwelling. They don't meet the code. They can do RV park models, a lot of things, as long as you got the label on them. When we first started here in tiny homes, you could Google tiny home regulations in North Carolina, and the brochure that our office had that Miss Tiffany prepared would be the first thing you'd see come up. Had people call me from all over the country asking about that brochure. And now I Google before I came here tonight, and there's several other counties in the state that have got brochures that are eerily similar to what ours is. But Tiffany did the research, put everything together, the statutes, the options, the way you can do a tiny home. But we probably average 2 or 3 of those a week now coming in, people wanting to do that. And you can order one on Amazon now that the walls fold out when it gets there. It's just getting really crazy. Now, it's great if it's a studio in the backyard for your art studio or something, but they all want us to certify it as a house. The realtors come wanting to know why we can't. We just can't. It doesn't meet the code. We can't do that. So here's just some different building sites. You'll recognize some of these different ones. On the left, I believe, was a village in High Hampton. I think it was at Sawmill Cottages. There was junk everywhere for a while. They do some different things and just put up. That's a trail system. I believe they're putting in the bottom right side cove, top right. I can't remember that bottom left. That was some employee housing going in there. Those manufactured homes side each other. Obviously, we expected the fire department. I believe that was the Greens Creek one. The top right is what our office looked like about 6 months into construction. The community services building. That's the big room in the center where they put in the new steel columns to support the second floor where our permit center is now. Bottom left is US shopping that went in on Frank Allen Road there. I believe that's the framing for that. The pool was at one of our clubs up on the mountain, and y'all can help me better than that. I don't recognize it right off, and I think that's where that one was. It's pretty recent. Here's some of our complaints. I had two pictures I didn't get in here. One I really wished I had. We actually got a complaint that came in after I put this together. Got a complaint that there's a fellow pressure washing his yard. I said, okay, get a new one every day. Went down there and he literally, where his gutters came out, his house was pretty close to the little stream there, and he just decided the best way to do that was to cut him a ditch with a pressure washer. And he cut about a 2-foot deep ditch with a pressure washer, and all the mud went right in. And I had a picture of that, but I didn't get it on here. I was ready to mess up Tiffany's PowerPoint, quite honestly, if I tried to insert something. But it's a pretty good picture. But these are some, they're just the kind of complaints we get from junk to the, some of these were bad construction there. That's at Fairfield Townhomes or something up there. I'm trying to remember on the bottom left. Underneath, that was, trying to remember that one, where that came up, building that was under. I believe that was one of the clubhouses and cashers. Then we got an awful lot of, last week before last encounter, at noon on Wednesday, I'd taken 21 complaints at noon on Wednesday. And the ladies do a form and everything. And a lot of it's, what my neighbor got to, does my neighbor have a permit? Or he can't do that. I mean, and a lot of times it's neighbor education, but we take them all and try to investigate them all. We don't get to them as timely as some of them would like us to, but we get there. Here's some other ones you see. The bottom right was a complaint that they found. One of the guys found on one of our river pictures. You see that? It's obviously the water's clear where that one tributary is running in. So what they do at that time, they drive up that little tributary and find out where that mud's coming from, and we address that situation. You see this was where it flooded in the back of the house, top left, an oil barrel in the creek. I don't remember where that was. That little driveway there. If any of you go across Allen Street after it's opened up now, it's at the far end of Allen Street, and there's one of those houses that had parking down below where those steps go up. That guy decided he was going to make him a driveway to get up there. He just started driving up and down that bank. And the town board called that complaint. It was another adventure. Here's some you can see the before and after on the left and right of how a road got repaired, what it was like when we got there, and what the guys got up to by the time we stopped going out there. They do a real good job of the building code is a little bit different. My building inspectors, they can reference the code and say, "Here's what you do." When the erosion control guys get out there, they got to help them come up with a solution a lot of times. Now, if it's a big job, it's go back to your engineer and see what they say. But, if it's a person that's their house starts washing and they don't know what to do, the guys are good at trying to help them figure out the best way to get it fixed. And we do follow what's called the state design manual for that, but it's mostly for real large projects that doesn't deal with us. There's a little bit of what fire inspections do. I think I hit a lot of that earlier. Most of you know by now we do the fireworks. We also have to do large tents that are set up like every weekend in Cashers. I have an inspector going out on a Saturday to inspect the tent. That's part of it. They require it's a mandatory inspection. So if it's greater than 400 square feet, they have to have a permit. And those are, I went to one of the worst I went to. I got up there and I was running pretty late that day and got up there and they were having something later that night in it. And underneath that tent, all the seats were hay bales, and that's just a no-no. You can't put combustibles like that under a tent, and it was just, it was and there were candles there, weren't there? So that's the only one that I ever had to really deny it. I couldn't work out, and I get called names that night. They couldn't have that event, so I had to delay them. Excuse me. But thanks, Chief Dillard. He helped me get that put away. Here's our totals. I think these numbers, they keep going up every year. The land development permits were 943. That's for any kind of new project at all. Erosion control large projects were from between a half and 1 acre. There were 12. These are over 1 acre to 10. This was in last fiscal year. 12 new floodplain permits. The fiscal year 23-24, there are at least 1,944 erosion control inspections or site visits, and 209 complaints called in by customers. That's the ones that Tiffany puts in the log. The ones that I get to my phone are just on my phone notes. I don't put them in if I can just deal with it real quick. So, permitting totals, this is our building permits. Excuse me, moving on through, you can see additions, 196, new single families, 254. New work means a detached garage or something that's not a residence, not a single family, but it's still a residential type building. Manufactured homes, 113. Miscellaneous, 1,531. I would say 1,250 of those are heat pump change-outs. That's quite an industry in our county. If you're not familiar with it, they're every day. And that's our most problematic inspection because we have to get in people's homes that are already living in. And that's a scheduling nightmare all the time. I'll pull it up in the morning. I have one fellow that concentrates in the cashier's area on Tuesday and Thursday doing those, and I'll pull it up, and there's 15 people on AM inspection. And there's just no way to make them all happy. And if you get any calls about that, what we always remind the contractor of is that the law says it's the contractor's responsibility to have it inspected. It's not our responsibility to be sure we get in. So, if we go out there and the door's locked and he was supposed to meet us, no one's home, we charge him a re-inspection fee to go back. So, demolition permits, that doesn't include any along the highway out through here. They should have come to us and actually got demolition permits, but the DOT kind of does things their own way. So, I'm hoping Ms. Tabitha will leave those buildings on the tax records while DOT owns them for a little while, and so they don't get pulled off. That's what we do them for. One of the reasons is to take that building off of the tax records, and also to track the waste if it has asbestos in it. We have a method to track it. Commercial, obviously fewer inspections. New commercial 19, addition, remodel. We get a lot of those. Downtown gets a lot of renovation permits. New work is small buildings on commercial side. Those ABC permits, if anybody applying to serve alcohol, we have to do an inspection for that, so we charge them a fee for that. The miscellaneous things could be any kind of random things, a service change on the building, something like that. The fiscal year, there are 18,614 building inspections completed, 50 weeks a year without 2 offices. It's going to average 35 to 40 inspections for each office each day. As long as all of my guys are here, we can usually handle that. After my accident, when they held us back, I'm usually the one that covers when somebody's out who wasn't able to cover, so we were really struggling for a while. And I have a lot of guys with a lot of time build up, vacation time. If somebody's out, we're just hustling all the time to keep up. Moving on down, about finished here. The last June, so I think most of you on this board, you voted to let us move forward with the new Tyler permitting software project. Again, I can't brag enough about Tiffany. She won't put her name in here, but she's the one been doing most of this work. Been on site for 2 weeks with somebody from each department, and Tiffany was there every day with all departments. He helped figure out how to put our processes into their software system and used our language instead of some of their language. You can see that's what the front page is looking like, the Civic Access Portal. When we're done, they'll be able to click on that straight out of our website. They can look at the calendar to find out about events like holiday, public hearings, we might post for having a contractor class or certain nights, something like that. And also they can search the public records. I'm pretty sure Tiffany processes, Ms. Kathleen sends her public records requests, and I'll go to her off the website. She probably processes one a day. And it's mostly a realtor or somebody wanting to do due diligence and see if there are any permits or outstanding in zoning or code violations or anything like that. So she handles most of those. They'll be able to do it themselves. It's going to be a great help. They'll be able to apply for any of our permits online. Then they can log in. Contractors will have their own account. The ones that do multiple jobs, they have their own account. They can log in and see if their inspection's been completed that day. They can see who did it. They can see if their permit's issued. They can see if the plan reviewer wants more information. All of that the contractors will be able to do, and right now they're calling their office for that. So it's going to be a great, great help to our office staff. They can pay online. That'll be brand new for us right now. We bill, I think, 110 different contractors and subcontractors monthly for their miscellaneous permits. A lot of them are these heat pumps. In the first week of the month, Amber's on the phone calling them to make sure they give her a credit card payment for that. So it's all done over the phone there. They bring a check in. So that's going to be a big help, and they can just pay right online. And then, of course, the map will be linked here. They can go right to it and see their project. Allow for public access, what I've been talking about, and the search review some of our records. Current live dates mid to late November. We're hoping to kind of get it tested live for about a month and then have the first of the year as a real kickoff. We're really looking forward to that. Again, it's largely what Tiffany's been able to accomplish. Tomorrow we have a training down here at the Community Service Being for each department to start testing what Tiffany's been testing. You can see our offices there. The recently renovated Community Service will be more upstairs in the permit center. If you haven't been in to see us, please come on up. And those of you in the cashiers there, I think those of you up there have definitely been in to see them a good bit. Did renovations there about 5 years ago. That's been a big help. And then she's through this little end, so the locations of senior on our job sites change drastically from day to day, doing our best to keep things natural and safe as possible. Sorry about Whiteside Mountain being flipped 90 there, but and then one of the golf courses knew that snow was outside our office one day, I'm pretty sure. That's all I got. You have any questions?
Sir, thank you so much
Thank
for all you do. Up next, we have our tax assessor report and 2025 reappraisal update from Ms. Ash, our tax assessor.
It's refreshing to hear Tony's issues. Sometimes I think I'm the only one. So I'm going to go through a little bit of a departmental update, and then we'll get into where we're at on the reappraisal right now. So I'm just going to kind of hit some of our hot topics, just kind of some of our values and things like that. One of the first things I like to mention that everyone might not be familiar with is that we have property owners in every state in the entire U.S. except for Nebraska. We cannot seem to find anybody from Nebraska. So if you know anybody, we're desperately seeking Nebraska. So, and my land records person put this together, so she did a pretty good job. So most of the congestion you see is just in this area where most of our owners are, and then we do have owners all throughout North Carolina as well. So I just like to mention that because we're pretty spread out in the county. And then this one just shows across the country. We have people all the way to Japan and all over the country, just so everyone's aware of that. And I kind of did a list over there of it's a lot of tropical islands where I would like to be, but and then we have some military members as well that are the ones in orange there that are stationed in those areas. And then our land records office, if you ever went onto our mapping website, they're constantly adding new layers there for conservation easement, present use value properties, the agricultural district that we just made edits to. We're constantly adding and doing those things, and they're doing a lot of stuff in our office as well. Our land records department is fantastic. I can just come up and just like those maps for the property owners. I said, what can you work out for this? She did a pretty good job coming up with that herself, just doing some Googling. So, we have fantastic staff. One thing that we are also working on, we had a ton of just unrecorded surveys in our office. So we are actively, and as part of our scanning project, we're also going to do those and offer those up to the Society of Surveyors for their MAPS database, which is where they house a lot of deceased or not active surveyors. So we're going to offer those up, but if nothing else, we'll have those available for the surveyors that want to come in. They'll be a lot easier for us to find because you basically just had a hodgepodge surveys everywhere. It takes somebody probably a day to find the one that they were looking for, if they could even find it. So it's one of the projects we are working on right now. As far as our deeds, the deed recording is still up from our average before COVID. It's come down a little bit, but we're still definitely above that average. And here is just a breakdown. So we were really back to the pre-recession numbers in the last few years as far as how many deeds were coming through. And our deeds are specific property. There's a whole lot more of deeds that get recorded, deeds of trust, and a variety of other things. But these are just deeds specific to our office that would transfer ownership or something of that nature. So we've definitely had several of the highest recording years in the most recent times. And then this is just kind of a breakdown of our 2023 qualified sales and how many sales fell into each category of a price range. So we did have several that were over 5 million and quite a few in over $1 million. And then that's just a breakdown of the category if anybody's interested. Vacant residential, we had 3,500 to 6.5 million. So you never know. It's definitely a wide variety. And then we had our highest residential recorded home sale, and this is just a house lot. This isn't, sure there's plenty more if you had 100 acres or something like that, but this is just a house and a lot. And the biggest one we had was last year, 8.15 million in Mountaintop, and then we've already had one this year that was 6.95 million in High Hampton. So, and as you can see, pretty much all of those, with the exception of one, have all been in the last few years. So that'll tie into my conversation that we're going to have here in a few minutes about the reappraisal. So for personal property, if you're not familiar, we have been doing business personal property compliance review for probably 15 years at this point. And that's really just to try to get educate our business personal property owners because a lot of them don't. If you don't have a CPA, you may not really know what you're supposed to be listing as far as it's taxable for personal property. So we just basically put everybody, every business on a schedule. And I think it's every 6th year, every business gets audited. It always pays for itself. So for last year, we did 56 audits, and it was 30 million in value discovered. And then this year, we've completed 16 and got 11 million so far. We still have several left to go. So, and then just a little note on, I know Nick talks a lot about short-term rentals. Just to mention, if someone's listening and not familiar, the contents that in a short or long-term rental that are provided to the tenant are taxable, and they are supposed to be listed every year in the month of January. So if you know anybody and you know you're not listing or getting a listing form, you are supposed to list those. So you just want to contact our office. We can walk you through getting set up for that and what all that's about. But we have way more of those people doing that now, so we just want to make sure if anybody's listening that does that, we are supposed to be getting those taxed. I don't know if anybody's going to be jumping to call us, but they can. Another thing I want to mention is watercraft values. The watercraft values have absolutely soared since COVID. I think they may be kind of settling in, but I just looked back and an evaluation manual we had from 2018. This model of Malibu had an average retail of $81,000. If you look back 6 years from that, it was $69,000. So it depreciated about 16% over that time period. And then I did that wrong. Sorry, mistake. I had too many slides. So 2017 currently that average retail for that 2017 is $69,000. So it's went down from 81 to 69,000 in that time frame. If we look back in history in 2018, the 2017, the 2011, which was 6 years before, was 48,620. So you can see quite a bit of difference there in the depreciation. And the average retail of that model today is 43,820, the 2011. And just looking at currently, that same model is $144,000 today. So we get a lot of people that say, my boat can depreciate. Well, it actually can. And it has been. So since it really was COVID, everybody, I guess, wanted to get on the water, so they started pushing those prices up, and they had a lack of supply, and with all the demand, the prices soared up. So we have not come back down yet. So one of the complaints we do get a lot is about boat values. Of course, if you have a bill of sale, we can look at that and see, go from that. But just wanted everyone to be familiar that those prices have drastically increased. So your boat could be valued more than you paid for it, which is kind of an odd concept, but it could be. On as far as the tag office, I put in the numbers for them. They've been very busy. So they opened the 26th of March, and they did almost 16,000 transactions in that amount of time, processed over $1 million of fees for D&D. And then the county got reimbursed around $24,000. And then we did $63.90 in notary fees and $525 novelty fees. And that's just, we sell the reflective bolts, the tag bolts, and then handicap placards, the plastic cover for the handicap placards. So those are separate amounts. And I think looking back, it's pretty similar to what we kind of expected we were probably going to make based on what D&B had provided to us. We have completed 3 audits so far, and we have a perfect score from those audits. This is kind of hard to see, but if you can kind of see down there, our total currently is 300. So we've been doing pretty good. No concerns there, which is fantastic because that makes us look better. And then we can also potentially get, the county can get reimbursed. I don't know exactly how that works out for. I know you can get a reimbursement if you've got a good audit score, but I'm not sure. So potential for maybe more money, which is good. Another thing I want to mention, just because we get complaints about it, our office is going to abide by what D&B tells us. is the process. We're not going to make our own rules. So we do that to make sure that down the road you're not going to have any issues. Because if we push through some incorrect or missing title work, it can help you later when you try to sell it or transfer it. And if it gets sent to DMV and they hold it, it could be holding there for a year and you never get the title. So we just are always going to go by whatever the DMV tells us to go by. People don't necessarily always appreciate that. They want us to push through, but the standards say you can't have whiteout, title work, and all these sorts of things. So we get a lot of flack for that, but we are always going to go by what they tell you to do because we're trying to save you time in the future or problems in the future. Because one of the situations that we're coming into right now, our previous tax software did not allow us to do gap billing. Anytime your renewal date or expiration date is extended on your tag, it creates a gap. And technically, that vehicle is taxable, whether the tag is turned or not. So it's either a registered vehicle or unregistered vehicle. And the only waiver for that currently is deployed military. They'll make exceptions, obviously, if your vehicle's in the shop and you can't get it inspected because you're required to get it inspected. But typically, that is really the only waiver. So there should be no other scenarios where your expiration date is changed. So, of course, we don't change people's expiration dates unless it falls under one of those categories. But we have a lot of other tag offices that do change those, and it's causing a lot of issues and a lot of gaps. So really, I've been hoping that DMV was going to educate some of the tag offices, and we all across the state, just to make sure that they'll stop just changing all the expiration dates. For one, it kind of gives us a bad rep because we're not changing them, and people can go 30 minutes away and get them changed without any question. But it's just, there's no real consistency there. So we've been trying to get DMV more to kind of educate and then maybe slowly put that into an audit process or some kind of way, because it just creates problems later, because then we really should be billing them and taxing them for however many months that they did not pay. And over last fiscal year, there was 1,822 gaps, and it was potentially over $44,000 in potential tax dollars. And we'll keep discussing it later if we're going to move towards that, but I just wanted to mention that because really, it can be a problem. It's very time consuming because if it's over a year, they have to give you a new tag, but all of those have to be researched. So you don't know if it was that they were in a different state and that's why they didn't renew their tags when they came here, or if it was just sitting in their yard. You don't really know all the scenarios, so you got to work out all of that and try to figure out, because the last thing you want to do is send a bunch of tax bills and then have to release a bunch of tax bills. They're difficult to collect anyway. Motor vehicle taxes are difficult to collect in general. So I'm hoping that we can get DMV moving towards maybe just making sure that, these tag offices are not just allowing everybody to get a blanketed expiration date change, but we can talk about that more at the end of the year, and we'll see where we're at there. On our new position, I appreciate that being approved. Just want to make sure there was no confusion on that. That will be more of a flex position. So they are, when we met with the ladies, they did say that it would be very helpful for them to have like a renewal only window. You could just kind of come do simple, quick transactions, and that would free them up to do title work, more extensive things. And it also will cover them in situations, because they expressed this when they had to work by themselves a lot of times in the previous location. So we can put that person kind of to fill in during lunch hour. Have one of these surgery or something like that where they have to be out for a prolonged amount of time. So I can feel that. If we get to the point where we're doing the gap billing, they can also do that research as well. And then they will assist in doing some of our monthly motor vehicle scroll. So that will help out a lot there. And then we have it written where they can also be in collections and assessments if we need them as well. So they're kind of really going to be just kind of all around. I don't know what the split is, but it doesn't matter. So it's kind of more of a split position, but I think it will definitely be beneficial all around. So, but definitely be there. So we will be doing that. Another thing I want to mention is the election. So I've been working with the voting board of elections. I can't think of their name. The board of elections office, and we're going to keep talking because there's a large increase in people just at the Skyline Services Center. Now I think the driver's license office is more in there more often now than they were during COVID, and with the tag office in there, there's just a lot more flow in there. So that's the times that there'll be early voting and doing general election. So I just want to let everyone know if you're coming to vote, that's great, but maybe it might not be the best time, to come do other services, unless you don't mind, an increase in traffic and things like that, especially on November 5th. Early voting may be questionable. Sometimes it might be fine, but November 5th, I expect it to be pretty busy, and most of my office, at least 3 of us, will be out there kind of helping direct traffic as well. So we're going to keep working with them just to make sure that voting process goes smoothly. And there's no hiccups there, and that, everybody kind of knows where they're supposed to be and following them around. So they're not, somebody's not waiting in line to go to the driver's license office or, go to one of the other sources, or vice versa, standing in line at the tag office thinking that they're going to vote. So we try to get that to go smoothly. But if you don't have to be there, I would say try not to be there during that time unless you don't mind, or you don't have any other choice. One of the really cool things we were able to do with our new tax software that we could not do in our previous tax software is to draw irregular structures. And so it was causing us a lot of issues when we go out to a piece of property, because if you got like a renovation addition permit, it was really difficult to know if you actually had added to that footprint without having the sketch there to kind of compare to. So we were having to use the building plans. Well, as most of you know, building plans typically aren't really what ends up actually being what's built a lot of times. So it was causing us a lot of issues. And we had around 376 parcels that had that. So we got that fixed for 2025 going forward. And I gave you a couple examples that you'll find familiar. So now we can do cool things like this. And I think most of you would recognize that is Fairview. And then we've also got Blue Ridge. So doing a lot more things, and I think that would be more beneficial too for fee appraisers and some of the other individuals who would like to see our sketch that weren't able to in the past. And it's really helping us. Using those actual digits is really helping us to make sure that the buildings do close, especially if they have a lot of irregularities. And the guys they've really taken that project on. We actually blew up the tax software because it wasn't actually prepared. It was working, but nothing was coming out. So had to make changes because they were more advanced than the software was. So that's a pretty cool project that we're working on. I just want to mention the field appraiser safety, because I'm always hopeful that it's not going to become an issue, but we are experiencing a whole lot more hostility and uncomfortable situations out in the field, to the point where one guy followed him and said, "What would happen if I killed you too?" I mean, things like that. So it's a little bit more intimidating. So we're, I'd ask for a lot more staff going into the next appraisal. We may back up and punt and try to go a lot more technology path, because I just don't want any situations. We're going to look towards trying to do better, maybe at notifying people and things like that. Because like Tony was mentioning with like heat pumps, sometimes it's 6 months before we get out to a heat pump permit, because we have one field appraiser team. So we'll start at one end of the county and we work all the way through the county, and then we start over. So if you happen to get the permit, a couple of days after we visited that area, it could be 6 or 9 months before we come back. So people half the time don't even know a permit was pulled. Because, for heat pumps and stuff, obviously if you did a renovation, you're probably going to know. So it just creates a lot of issues, and so we're trying to figure out some way, but we are getting, we're not necessarily intimidated by guns or anything, but we do have a lot more people visibly wanting to show us that they're there to protect their property. And if you don't want us there, we'll leave. We'll in a heartbeat. So just so you're aware, if you say we want you to leave, we will absolutely leave. No questions asked. So I just hope it doesn't become a situation, is kind of where I'm at. And so it just makes me a little bit nervous every time I send them out, just because of some of the situations I'm hearing about, the tree cutting crew and things like that. So just one of those things we have to worry about. We've had this as kind of a hot topic since we sent out tax bills. So we typically will visit properties if we have a building permit, it's recently sold, we have a fire report, if an owner requested an appeal, or we're out in that area specifically doing reappraisal review. Um, we obviously do not have the staff to visit every property every single year. And so we would ask that the owners let us know if they make changes, because what we've had is a lot of people calling and say, "Oh, I took that building down last year." Well, we wouldn't have any way of knowing that. And then once it gets to that point, then you're really going to have to prove to that, because we are going by January 1. So without the building permit, or some kind of other paperwork, we really wouldn't have any way to know that. So you could end up having to pay for something that you really did tear down. So we just ask if you make changes. I understand people don't want to report positive changes, but I would definitely say if you tore your building down or something, you might want to let us know, because they don't report control burns to us, and we definitely wouldn't know about an unpermitted demolition unless we just happen to stumble upon it. So we've got a lot of people that have said that, and same thing kind of goes for personal property changes. In the past, we would send like a wage garnishment, and then people would say, "Oh, I don't own that anymore," but they'd been listed it for 3 or 4 years. So just one of those things. We'll be happy to take things like that off, but we have to actually know, you don't own it anymore or something like that. Because like boats, for example, they're on a 3-year registration or a lengthier registration cycle. So you could still be on that list that we're receiving from wildlife, and say you sold it to somebody out of state, so they didn't have a North Carolina registration, we wouldn't really have anything that swayed us there. Whereas maybe one of you had registered the exact same boat, and we would probably see that there's an issue there. So just working with us and letting us know, we'll be happy to make sure. We want the records to be right, but we just need some information sometimes to make sure that they're right. So, and then Tony kind of mentioned some of these statistics here. So we've had a steady rise in permits pulled over the last several years. There's starting to be more recently more renovations and things like that instead of new single families, as you can see there. We did have quite a peak of those coming, but those have kind of settled in. We still have more than the average, but we're getting more renovations and miscellaneous type generator types of permits like that. This is just a breakdown by how many we have by construction cost and square footage. And then I like to put in the highest. So here was the highest in 2023, the highest construction cost and square footage, and that was in Silver Run. And then the highest construction per square foot was in Boston Reserve. So I like to mention a couple of those. And then these are commercial. That's just Summit Charter, and it had the highest construction cost in commercial and per foot. And then this building in Wade Hampton had the biggest square footage. And then going into, this is just our real property taxable value, and this is where we ended up as far as a tax base for 2024. And this is a breakdown of all of our business and individual personal property accounts and how many of those items that we kind of have in each category. And then I just put the registered motor vehicle addition and value from last fiscal year. Since it's on a staggered system, it's a little bit different, but it is an added value there. And this is what Brandy is responsible for collecting. This does not include our public service companies, which you typically don't get that till the end of August, and then any of those future discoveries, if we have any rollbacks that we need to add into that. And then, of course, we do not collect for the town of Sylva, so that won't include the town of Sylva. But that is what Brandy currently has the responsibility of collecting. And then going into Brandy, so the tax bills were mailed the week of July 15th. Those are due September 1st, and the last day to pay those before interest is January 6th. They got pushed back a day because it was on a weekend this year, and so interest will begin January 7th. And then for anyone that's not familiar, you can pay online, get duplicate tax bills, receipts, and do address changes all on our on the Jackson County tax website. There's a little QR code which we put on the bill this year. So you just accept that disclaimer, and then once you did the search, I did the County of Macon. We ended up with a County of Macon ownership once we did that boundary line change. But if you see there, once you pull it up, you can view and print the bill, the receipt, address change, and then of course you can go through the online payment. So we have some options online for anybody that doesn't want to go through our office. And then this is all of the collection rates for each year as of January 30th. I probably need to shrink this down a little bit. As of January 30th of their given fiscal year. So you can see a steady increase that Brandy's team has been able to accomplish down there. They've been doing a fantastic job. I think Brandy started, I want to say in 2014. So you can just see that, she's done a very good job of continuing to increase that collection rate and had 2 years now where we've been over 99%. And then these are, if you look back, this is where all of the rates are as of June 30th, of this year. And you can see that the lowest one, I think, is 99.77%, and all the way up into 99.91%. So it's remarkable to even try to get that amount of money collected. And that's, once you get into those little amounts, that is difficult, very difficult. So she does a fantastic job. Another thing that we're looking into, we have a lot of very high dollar delinquent personal property accounts that we have tried every other means of enforced collection to get. And so we are currently talking to the attorney's office about seizure and sale process of those properties, which is one of our enforced collection remedies. We have not got that process started yet. And we would love for everybody that has those high dollar accounts to come pay. But that entails a lot. I mean, you basically take over the business, you take all of their items out, secure them, and then we sell them to pay off the taxes. So it's definitely not something that we would necessarily want to do. We definitely don't want to come to Mr. Wright, not that he's not paying, but come take all the, the caskets and things like that. We really don't want to do stuff like that and sell it on the courthouse steps. But that is something that we're looking towards because we do have a lot of very high dollar, and I mean like almost $20,000 worth of, delinquent taxes, not, we're not what we're talking about, taking somebody's mobile home or something like that, but very big business accounts.
If they do have some caskets, let me know.
Okay.
I'm always looking for.
Yeah, we're trying to get a deal. Out of them. Yeah. Another new law that was passed kind of quickly and stuck in the bottom of a bill that we're dealing with right now that we were told was supposed to be repealed, but it has not yet. It requires the collector to advertise a tax lien by posting the lien in a conspicuous manner on the parcel. If you think people don't like us now, I can't imagine having to go out and put this sign in somebody's front yard. But we have been told it will be repealed, and it really doesn't go into effect until the 2025 tax year, which would technically be spring of 2026. So hopefully that's all going to get canceled out, but it is one thing to be aware of that. Currently, by law, starting we are required to go post the lien in somebody's.
Yeah, you think somebody's threatening you now?
Yeah. I'm not sure if they just really think that we enjoy that sort of thing or what. And then, like I said, I always like to mention our property tax relief programs. So if you're 65 or older or totally and permanently disabled and full-time North Carolina resident and just your primary residence, and for 2025 you have a gross household income of $37,900 or less, you should be able to qualify for that program. And that application period is January 1 to June 1, and then we just need a driver's license or an ID or something just to confirm that is your primary residence. Income tax return or proof of income if you don't do your income tax return, so a bank statement or something like that. And then we do need an AV9A form for any disabled applicants that has to be filled out by the physician. Yes, sir.
So on that, for disabled people, household income 37,900, is that come from the state, or is that what?
Yes, it's a statewide, state blanketed amount. So every county has the exact same requirement.
Because to me, it seems like the property owner, because not always the whole household helps pay bills. It seems
Yeah.
like the property owner, if they're
Yeah.
disabled, that you should apply to them too. But if it's statewide, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, and if it's just like, I mean, if you had kids or something in there, we're not really going to count them. We're just going to count spouses.
Okay.
So, and then, but on the income, the law does say it's all monies received from every source. So that includes Social Security, retirement, that includes everything other than inheritance. So we get a lot of people that have like rental income and they made like 75,000. They're like, oh, but my adjusted gross income was 5,000. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. So it's just one of those things to keep in mind. And if it's married spouses, even if both their names are not on the property, you do have to still have both of their incomes. So that's kind of where we're saying gross household. But yeah, if it was a unmarried person, it would just be their income that would be qualified. Yeah. And it could be like, even like brothers could own a piece of property, and as long as one of them qualified, they could get the benefit too. So it wouldn't be that we would include both of them, because those are separate owners. But a spouse is a joint.
Sometimes what I'm getting at is like, say, if a parent is disabled, but their adult child has a job, but they still live with them.
Mm-hmm. As long as the parent was in the one on the deed, that would be fine.
Okay.
And even so, really, it's set up to say, as long as that owner, but spouse is just kind of one owner. So as long as the one owner met the requirements, that would be fine. So you could have two brothers and one be 65 and meet the requirements, and they're still going to get the full 50% benefit, even if the other one doesn't. But now you have three owners, then the highest they could get is 33%, because that's all of their ownership.
Okay.
So, but if there's any questions about anything like that, we would be happy to try to see if someone qualifies. I'd rather someone submit the information and let us go through it, or come and let us talk them through it, just to make sure they don't. Because if you do qualify, then you want to make sure people are getting that benefit, because home ownership is becoming more and more difficult, especially for elderly people on a fixed income. So, but that exclusion, particular exclusion, does the greater of 25,000 or 50% of the appraised value of the residence, which would include the dwelling site up to 1 acre, and then any related improvements like garages or carports that go with the house. It wouldn't include like agricultural buildings or something like the barns and things like that. But if it kind of went with the house, then that would be included. And then there's also the disabled veteran, which is for total and permanent service-connected disability. So you'd have to be 100%. We have a lot of people that unfortunately are not that, so they don't qualify, but very similar requirements on the ownership. Surviving spouses, if they're unmarried, can also qualify in certain situations for that. Same timeline, but there is no income requirement for that, just a different form that you need to get filled out at the Veterans Office. And that exclusion is just a flat $45,000. So what a lot of people will do is, if they can qualify for disabled veteran now, then they can switch later, maybe if they get to the elderly one that's a better benefit. If they get to that age or under that income. But some people don't have the right, they have too much income. So, and we do have another one we don't mention very often, just because most people don't want to do it or don't qualify for it. And that's a circuit breaker deferment program, which is kind of a situation where anything over your income percentage could be deferred on the taxes. And most people don't want to do it because it's deferment, so it means it's still a lien on your property. If you get disqualified, you won't qualify anymore. But it does have a higher income bracket. But the issue that we have is, because we have such a low tax rate, which is good, but most people would have to have $45,000 income and have like a $750,000 house to be able to qualify. So we have people that qualify for the income, but they don't actually qualify for the deferment, because it's basically saying up to this amount you should be able to afford based on your income. Anything over that will be deferred, but then they don't get to that point, because a lot of people think they have 20 acres or something, but that doesn't count. So we get in those situations. We'll be happy to talk somebody through and see if they qualify for that, because it is helpful, but We just don't have a lot of people here. I think in big cities where you have a lot of gentrification and, you know, your house is now worth $1 million and you're still making, you know, $40,000 a year, which is going on a lot in Mecklenburg counties, then you can definitely see a benefit there if you're you know, okay with doing a deferment program. It's just very few people are going to fit the parameters here for that, but we'd be happy to talk to anybody about that. And that brings me into the reappraisal. Is everybody good to keep plugging on? Okay.
Let me ask a question, Ms.
Yeah.
Ash. If, what's the procedure? We have the Board of Equalization and or Review Board,
Mhm.
which handles the questionings on property appraisals.
Yeah.
And there's a window of opportunity for that. What's the watercraft procedure if somebody questions the value of a watercraft?
Okay, good question. So what we'll do is we take the first several months of the year and process all those listing forms, and then we go through a process and try to discover and determine what should be listed, and then we send out a value notice. We've done that for the last 2 or 3 years now in May, and that gives people 30 days. It tells you on there you have 30 days to let us know if you've got any issues with that, and that could be ownership, it could be value, anything like that. If you want to contest that we've got you a late list penalty and you don't think you were late, any of those things, you can appeal in that period. So that will give you a 30-day window to make a contestment. Obviously, if we couldn't settle those, we could reconvene the board and hear those appeals. That's kind of a stipulation in the law. It allows you to reopen for motor vehicle appeals, personal property appeals, compliance review appeals, basically anything that wouldn't normally be settled at the beginning of the year. We haven't had anybody. We've had a couple of business compliance review appeals, but we haven't really had any of those that we haven't really worked on and settled. Most of those we can figure out, especially if you got a bill of sale or you can show that maybe we used the wrong model. I mean, there's so many varieties of boats that a difference in one model or size can make a huge difference in evaluation.
So just contact your office.
Yeah, it'll give a contact information at the bottom, and then there's contacts. And we started doing those to try to clear up, the billing, because what we would have is we'd have a ton of people that wanted to do that during the billing. We had to create a lot of release refunds. It was just easier for us to go ahead and handle all the valuation issues or most of the valuation issues up front, and then we could just kind of deal with, people just didn't like the value, the bill itself. Or maybe they, hadn't catch a fire and they say it wasn't a catch a fire or something like that. So I think it's been a pretty good process, and I think it's helped to kind of get, there's of course all these people that don't, they kind of ignore the mail. And if they can still show us, that they didn't own it and show us where they sold it before the beginning of the year, we'll obviously still work on something like that because we'd consider that a legal tax. But most valuation issues, unless we're like, oh wow, we really missed the mark on this, and are going to be settled in that May to June prior to billing time frame. All right, let's go into.
They've done a good job on that. I had a family member to appeal the boat value, and it's fixed now. So y'all done a good job on it.
Good, yeah. It's pretty informal.
Yeah.
We just need to know. It goes back to kind of our reporting. We just kind of need to know where to go, what you got. It just makes it a little easier. So, going back to, I'm not going to hit back on all of the basics again. I would welcome anybody that wants to know all about, because we hit on that for probably 45 minutes or so, about what the reappraisal is, why we do it, where we're at, and all those sorts of things in the process. We went through that a lot on the February 13th work session. So I'd welcome anybody that wants to go back and get a good feel for where we're at and why we're here, why we do reappraisals and all that sort of thing, to kind of go back and listen to that conversation. I want to kind of hit on where we're at now and going forward instead of going back to that. But we may go and hit back on that again, in January before we send notices, just kind of why we do a reappraisal and what it is. And I just don't want to waste, time when there's so much other things to cover. Going back to that same stuff one more time. And what I'm really going to do in a lot of these is, I'm not saying people don't trust us, but there's all kinds of information out there that is accessible on the internet that I would love to reference and show people. Because a lot of times I think they think we just kind of make stuff up and just, or throw, oh, that looks like a good number. I want to kind of hit on just all the popular websites and things like that that just kind of show where we're at in the market. And then that way it's not just me telling you, well, look, this is what all the deeds say, and you don't really have access to go take all the time to pull all the deeds and confirm what we're saying. So just kind of give you a feel for kind of where we're at right now and lead us into where we're eventually going to be. So here's just kind of some of the popular sites showing medium home sales prices. And this is in Silva, and the median home sales price, as you can see, is $367,500.
That's why young people can't afford a house.
And that is exactly why yes, that is, and that's going to become more and more of an issue. And what I did is I really no rhyme or reason, but I just did Sylvan Cashers. There's more population in Sylvan if I'd have used Dillsboro, Whittier, or something like that. And then, of course, it's not necessarily covering Glenville or Semicolli, but just to try to get a benchmark for showing just different ends of the county. So that was on Adam, and here's the median sales price for Cashers. And I've got the websites down there and everything, so if anybody's interested. And they all are going to vary slightly just because of the way their algorithms work. So this is Zillow, and just for reference, they have a 5-year trend. So this would have been at the end of 2020 for Jackson County as a whole. So it's going to include everything. And this is where we're at right now. So that's 44% increase there for the county. This is Silva. So in 2020, and I'm using the end of 2020 just because that was their last reappraisal. We were at 223, 159, and we're at 323, 340, which is 45% over that 4-year period. And same in Cashers, we were at 689. And we're at 1.174. So even you see between Zillow and that one, it was 1.3, and now it's 1.1. So they're going to vary a little bit, but you can still see that it's a 70% increase. And then this is Redfin, and it's a 50% increase. This is for Silva. We can see 227, now it's 340. Another 70% in Cashers. This one has 1.45 currently, and it was 851, 750. And that was on sales prices. So now let's move into median list prices. So the County Commissioners Association put this up recently, and it's North Carolina median home list price. And we happen to be number one with $849,500 and a 98% 5-year change. So we're beating all the other counties there. Don't know if that's a good thing or not, but we are beating all the others. And this is off of Mountain Life real estate site, and you can see all of the average list prices over there for the different areas and some of their information from their time period of the market update. And here we are here from April of 2024 on Realtor with a median list price of $850,000. And this is from Fly Homes, just goes through the median list prices for all the different areas in the county. And the lowest one there is it Webster? Yep, 359,000 is the lowest. So that's just a little bit of just information that's readily available online. I just wanted to point out because, like I said, a lot of times people really don't, until you really look at the numbers, you may not really realize just how drastically the market has changed. And it's not been just what we're typically used to, which is, in 21, somebody said, oh, well, I just bought that in 2019. And the value should be pretty close. We're not going to have that here. For 25, if you bought it in 23, there's going to be quite a bit of increase that's still going to go into it to determine what your value is for January 1 of 2025. Even if you bought it today, that market's still trending, and we just got to capture where we're going to end up for January 1. And all it will take is a drop in the interest rates or something, and we can be in a whole nother bidding, war again because we have limited supply. And, a lot of demand because a lot of people have been sitting waiting to be able to afford something with the interest rate. Because the interest rate may not even let you, I mean, if you had a limited amount of money that you could spend with the interest rate, there may not be a single house in the whole county that you could afford. And that's just where we're at. So, and then a lot of people, they want to transition to smaller homes, but they don't want to do that and then end up having to pay more. So we're in a very difficult situation in the county, and most of the sales that we are having are cash sales. So it's an interesting place to be. I'm amazed every day with some of the information that we see. So this is just off Zillow. This is their list price. And these are from Silva. So these are the lowest two that we have. And then these are the highest two that we have. Just sorting high to low. And so there's 6 under 350,000, which is 350,000 is not really affordable for a lot of people. It's definitely even the lowest being 220 is more for that a lot of people would be able to afford with their income, especially if they're on, just a general worker income, even a couple that both made $30,000 each a year. I mean, I don't know that they can afford $220,000. But then that goes vastly different when you get up to cashers, when the lowest is 350, and the highest. I guess I missed that one there. I said under 350, and then after that 350 is a 499, and then the highest is 9.45. So the one here, this is like 100 and something acres on Ridgecrest. So it's 9.4, so you kind of can understand it comes with a lot of land. This one's not. This was just in a development. So it's definitely a difficult situation that we're in, and especially it's hard enough in Silva, but if you look, there are generational families and cashers that are absolutely getting shoved out. And holding on for dear life. And so it's kind of a bad situation because most of you are like, oh, well, you're sitting on a gold mine. But if you don't want to get rid of your property, you want to pass it on to your kids. It's really a hard situation to be in right now because, your property is worth a whole lot more. And you could sell it, but where are you going to go? And I mean, I have a generational family property. My grandfather got it from his sister, and then my mom got it, and me and my brother own it. So we have no desire to sell it either. So I understand that, but I'm talking about peanuts compared to what a lot of these people's properties are unfortunately worth. But that's how our system is set up to value at 100% of market value, and whether we agree with it or not agree, that's kind of what the state law requires. But it's definitely putting people in a hard spot, and but they do have very valuable pieces of property, and they're definitely more. It's definitely expanding more in cashers. I mean, you gentlemen are up there, so I mean, it used to be areas that completely separated from mountaintop and some of those bigger developments. Though even those areas, it's just pushing back, and so it's a tough spot for a lot of people to be in. So, but these were our DOR stats for sales ratio. So you can see that we're quickly plummeting down, and this is really, it's probably worse than that. They just do a sampling of all of our ratios. This is not like every ratio that we have. So it definitely shows that the market has continued to go up, and our appraisal values are just nowhere near where the sales prices are coming in at. And then this is just a little map that shows all of the sales that we've had since 2021. And we have had, which we went through some of the D numbers, we have had just an exorbitant amount of sales information, which is great because then it helps us because we feel a lot better with where our values end up being. But it's a lot of data coming in, a lot of changeover and things like that. So it's good because it helps us to feel more confident in our values and you have more basis there than just having, you know, 2 sales for 1,000 properties and you're like, well, that's all we had to go on. But it is a lot to go through and review and try to verify and try to make sure that we're using sales that were good sales and we're not trying to say, oh yeah, that one sale we used, you know, and it included furniture or something like that, so we should have taken off value for that or something for that matter. Couple just little percent changes, feeding back into just because you purchased it in 23 doesn't mean it's not changed in 20 for 25. So this is just a vacant piece of property and off Cane Creek, and it sold in April of 23 for $57,500 and sold again in January for $65,000, which is 1.45% change per month. Which I don't know if any of you are very familiar with the real estate market, but that's kind of unheard of. I think there was times in the past where 1.45% could have been in a year. So it's definitely, for that to be that short period of time, that is an exorbitant amount of change. So those are the types of things that we're looking at when we value those areas to see, okay, well, is that a pretty consistent method? So that sold in January, so we still have, you know, 11 more months that we need to add 1.45% to if that's what it looks like that's staying pretty consistent with. And then this is in condo in Trillium, kind of same thing. Sold in July last year for $1 million. Sold in July this year for $1.255 million, 2.31% per month. So 25%, over 25% in 1 year. Again, that's kind of unheard of. That yours? It's pretty good, yeah. Yeah, I think I sold a home and made like 10 in 2 years, and I thought that was fantastic at the time. But yeah, and then here is another one in Cedar Creek Woods, 0.69%. So they're all going to kind of vary depending on their neighborhood. That's how it always works out. But that one did go up 7% in a year. So what I'm trying to drive home is that the real estate market is constantly changing. So basically, all the sales prior to the end of 2024 really need to be adjusted for that percent change going on in that particular market area. And that's what we're working on. And that's going to be kind of a different factor for a lot of people because, like I said, the market normally wasn't changing that much in those 2 years leading up to the reappraisal. So we could say, yeah, if it sold in 19 or 20, we'll look at it for 21. That we'll look at it, but you know, just because you paid, you know, $250 doesn't mean that that's what that's going to be assessed for if you bought it 2 years ago, unless you are looking at where it's going to end up as of January 1. So what we're going to end up having, and I talked to the Department of Revenue about it, but you know they're not going to change their practices. But what we'll have is when we do our sales ratio study, unless you know. We can always go into a recession, so I don't want to assume it's all going to be positive. But we're going to end up having a sales ratio of over 100 at the beginning of the year to slowly transition to where we end up as of the end of the year, which should be very close to 99 or 100%. So but that's kind of an odd, all of this is kind of odd, new, and different. We normally, you know, you're happy to be at 98, 99, but we would never be at that by the time we got to the end of the year if we didn't continue to watch the market. We're going to be however many percent back, to be 6.69% per month off on this value if we just lock that value in as of March, and that's what their assessment was. So we're basically just jumping into a situation where we're already going to be well behind market value going into it, and that's what we're supposed to be at. So it's just one of those things, and we're going to keep track of it and try to unfortunately, we're not in a county where everything's kind of every little property is as it is and every neighborhood's as it is. It's one of those, you know, vacant land in this neighborhood is going to change at a different level than this neighborhood and this township. And so it's going to be a lot of finagling. Of course, if we don't have the sales to back up that, then we'll just have to use wherever we were at that, you know, period. We're not just going to make up something and just hope it works. But, yes.
ask any realtor, my wife's one, there's not hardly any inventory.
No, no, no.
The rates for stuff, that one fortune.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's for sure.
It's minimal.
Inflation's killing us.
Yeah, yeah.
Buy a house, it's sky high. Go to get insurance, sky high. Now taxes, sky high. It's killing us.
Yep. Get you coming and going, as they say. So what we do, and I mentioned this in the last conversation, but we're going to go a little bit of examples. What we have to do as a county, just because of the magnitude of the sales, is we do mass appraisal. So we're basically looking at every single sale that occurs in the county over that time period, reviewing all those and using that to determine where our values end up being. So we're not going through and saying, okay, Mark's got this property, either one. We're going to find 3 or 5 specific sales, and that's how we're going to value your property. We would never have the time to do that. So what we're looking at is we're going to look at every sale in that area, compare those, try to see where the market's going, to try to figure out whether your property sold or not, where it's going to end up falling in that at. But going through those sales is critical, because if you have sales where the homes have been renovated or something, and we're not familiar with that, we could assume all of them are are worth that same amount, and then we'll be in a situation during the appeal period with some of the people that hadn't been renovated at least saying mine's not worth that. Mine looks like it's from 1980. All of those other people that sold, they did a renovation recently. So all of those levels are critical in trying to find a determination of where the values need to be. And then, of course, we can do, we typically are never given any income information for apartments or things. We can kind of go on and find some of the student housing ones that's available. Usually that's more of an appeal thing. We'll get income information in an appeal if they don't agree with the value. But we can value certain properties based on their income method, and we would prefer to do that, but we just don't normally get enough income information to feel confident in that, and so we do more like case by case. So this is kind of a small little area, but there was a lot of sales, so I wanted to use it. So this is kind of what we're looking at. This is in Silver Run. So we had 2022 sales, and that median, I think it was just one, but at $2 million. And then as you can see in 2023, the median went up to $2,022,000. And then for 2024, I didn't include that $2.7 million because we're going to have to look into that one because it's a little bit of an outlier compared to the rest. But you can see that median so far is $2.2 million. And then our listings were at 2.3. So you can see that gradual, just a little bit of an increase going on there. So although we had an increase in that one, there was just the one, but we had an increase of the 8% there. What we're looking at currently from the 23 and 24 sales is 4.94% there. So really, if we look at just that without knowing much else, what we would assume is that with 6 months left, if we took that half of that basically, then we added it in, the values should come in around 2.3, 2.325, depending on if everything stays consistent there. So what you're going to have is somebody from 2022 absolutely not happy when they paid $2 million for a piece of property that's going to somehow now be valued, a couple of years later for $2.3 million. But that's really how the market is trending. And that's just kind of what we're looking at when we're going into a neighborhood. This one, fortunately, just had a lot going on. We don't use listings. I mean, we like to look at them because, of course, we don't want to be over a listing. But it does kind of help us just to kind of get a feel for where those are falling. Typically, in past, things would not necessarily sell for what they were listed for. There was usually always a reduction there. This market is a little different. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So, and then, of course, like I said, this little outlier here, we would check and make sure, does it have like the best view there? Is that why it sold for a little bit more? So we're always digging in. But other than that, this is a pretty consistent area. All these are new homes. This is ideal for what we do situation. But what we typically get is this scenario here where we had 21 sales, which we wouldn't necessarily use, but we would look at. And one was 362.5, and the other one was 480. And then we had a 2013 for 713, and then a 2024 for 550, 713, and 750. So then we're left trying to figure out what happened with the 550. Or was the 700s, was there something in those that we're not privy to? Why did they pay so much more? I mean, it seems pretty consistent that they were in the 700s and something just happened with the 550. So it's just one of those situations where we're left to go, okay, is there a specific problem with the one that was 550 that we need to look at? Or did they just end up getting a deal and we should just disqualify that sale altogether? Because it just doesn't make sense. Because everything that we see would say that that should have sold between 765 and 770 based on the other sales. That's just a small tidbit of kind of what we're working with when we go through these neighborhoods and these areas. These are small examples, but just to get a feel for, because this one's for common, to get these sales that they just don't make any sense, and you want to take the time to research them if you can, because a lot of them just end up being at the appeal, and you don't really want them to be at the appeal because maybe there was a reason that one sold for that amount. Maybe you have a bunch of vacant lots and you have a couple that sell for $20,000, the rest sell for $50,000, and you're like, well, the $20,000 just throws out something was wrong with them. But then you learn that the $20,000 don't have a view, and there's only 5 of them in the whole area, so you've overvalued everybody by $30,000 just because you threw them out. So it's just, there's a lot of that sort of thing that you're having to go through. Unfortunately, sometimes we just kind of have to just roll with it if we don't know anything more and hope that somebody will give us a little bit more insight. But that's just kind of more what we're looking at when we're kind of going through a process and looking at neighborhoods and just trying to get a feel for what ultimately the value will end up being. And here will be the fun part. So currently, comparing 2024 to 2025, this is where we're at currently. We still have yet to finish Cashers. We hadn't done any of Cashers' initial review, and we have not finished Hamburg. So that's just applying what our current base rates were. So those are subject to change, but I don't foresee them changing in a drastic manner. But we found some late sales that have kind of been throwing us for a loop. The dock slip there at Cedar Creek was really throwing us for a loop. Those are going up, I think, 150%. So this is kind of where we're at right now. The subject to change, I always like to say this is just taking an entire township with hundreds of thousands of parcels. This is not a flat blanket. Everybody in the county is going to get a 46%. And each township has a grouping of neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has different property tax. So you could have vacant land in Barker's Creek, and it could be going down. And you could have, residential dwellings going up by 20%, and commercial going up by 30%. And it all varies. And this is just really just initial, just kind of showing where we're at now, because this is not common. I want to go ahead and start having these conversations to make sure people are prepared. And I welcome them to go ahead and look on, any of those sites or talk to a realtor or appraiser, and start having those conversations. Because this is where the market's telling us that our values should be. We don't always agree, with Zillow and realtors' opinions, especially if the property's not sold, because it really doesn't know where to start, because it's all computer algorithms. It also, a lot of those sites will include what we would include as valid sales. So it might be foreclosure sales, something like that. It also doesn't know what to do if you purchase a property for $500,000, did renovations, and then sold it for $1 million. It just thinks you've, doubled. But there was money that went into it. So there are some things in there, but I think for some it might help, to get a benchmark if you wanted to look on Zillow or Realtor or Trulia or whatever those other ones are. But just want to go ahead and start preparing, everyone or anybody that's interested or listening that this is kind of where we're at currently. And put this chart on because this just shows our growth over time, and that was just added new construction. So that's new homes, renovation. So we were doing around 300 plus million, I think, for several years there, and this last year was 267 million or something like that. So we were averaging a lot of growth to still be so far behind. So people were getting, $3.5 million permits to build houses, and we were coming in at 2. We were still at the value, but we weren't anywhere near, where they were coming in at. And just for reference, this would be comparing if we didn't have that growth, just 21, where our last appraisal was, versus where we're going to end up about. But like I said, this is still all preliminary. We've still got a lot of reviewing to do. The market can change. I mean, we can go into a recession tomorrow, and these values could plummet, and we're scrambling trying to figure out how to reduce the value, what percentage to reduce the values, because we've had that situation happen in 2007, going into 2008. So we've had that, and then we also had the opposite of that in 21, where we weren't able to capture enough of the value because the market was there and it was pushing, but we were still kind of like, is this COVID thing going to end or not? And we were afraid to put too much emphasis into it, and then immediately we were already so undervalued. The hard thing, of course, that comes with these numbers is, like I said, there are people obviously in this this county that haven't made any changes to their property, and it's difficult to keep seeing your property value go up. I mean, hopefully, the tax rate change, maybe that, I'm hoping they aren't going to see a 46% increase in their tax bill, but it's just difficult when, there's a lot of people out there that aren't doing anything to their property, and they're still obviously getting those increases, but that's just what the law requires us to do. So we obviously will welcome any conversations, any appeals. We're happy to look about with anybody. But that's kind of where we're at right now, and then we'll see later where we're going to end up as far as at the end. So we'll keep a close watch on all the sales coming in, and make sure we're not seeing any kind of recession type situation, or like I said, if the interest rate drops enough, we could be in another whole nother crazy increase situation. So it's just one of those things. I just think it's important with that kind of increase, because 21 we saw like 17% countywide. So it just shows the drastic increase there. But all that information is available and readily, on websites and stuff. So I welcome anybody to start looking at that, preparing, and trying to get a feel for where they think their property would be worth. I understand, because I have no desire to sell mine either. You don't want to sell it, so you don't know what it's worth, and we can just kind of walk people through that too, because it's difficult to explain, especially like mobile homes. Mobile homes are some of the most difficult thing to explain, because most don't think a mobile home would ever appreciate, kind of like the watercraft, but they do, because as home prices, residential stick-built home prices increase, manufactured home prices increase as well, because now you're willing to pay $250,000 for a 2,000 double wide, because that's all you can afford. You can't afford a $350,000 single family dwelling. So they all kind of correlate together. So that's one of those difficult things that we deal with as well is mobile homes. Of course, those depreciate a lot more rapidly, but they're still selling for quite a bit more. So it's just trying to figure out where those are. So it's difficult, but we try to do our best to kind of make sure that everybody is valued as fairly as possible based on the sales that we have. But definitely, once we get more into it, I always welcome anybody to appeal and just let us know if we've missed the mark on it, because we don't mind to look at anything. I would say that then you overpay, and we see later, like, oh goodness, why did we have so much value in this house? But we'll get more into that later. So the next thing we'll have up is our schedule of values, and I'll go through that in detail, just kind of go through all of that, where it's at. That's going to include all of our base rates and things like that, as where we're at, how to calculate a value on a property, things like that. Try to be as informative as possible. And then that we'll have to go through the public hearing process. And we do that earlier just to allow time should it be appealed, because you can appeal either of the schedules. We'll do a regular schedule and a present use value deferment schedule separately. Should one of those be appealed, we can still kind of proceed forward. So if our present use value schedule got appealed, we can still proceed forward with the rest of our stuff, just not do anything with our deferment value. So at least allow us to move forward with something, but that should hopefully get us. Hopefully that appeal will be settled by the time we need to send notices anyway. So that's kind of our plan right now. And then we're always available to talk about any topic, but we definitely are available if you want to get with us to have any kind of discussion at any of these meetings about reappraisal or property tax relief or just about anything. So you just email us and we will try to see what we can work out. We go to the veterans dinners and things like that, talk about disabled veteran. I went to one for, I can't remember what it was called, breakfast for farmers. So we're available for all of those sorts of things and be happy to go. So that is there. And is there any additional questions besides all of my numbers that I threw at you?
I think we're all in agreement that it's unprecedented times.
Yeah.
And, I want people to know that there are options out there for them before they just sell. So, please contact the tax office.
Yeah. And a lot of times people will think like, I want my assessment to be high because it'll sell for more. No one cares what it says. I mean, really, when they go to buy a piece of property, they don't care what it's assessed for. They're only going to care what it's assessed for if somehow they pay less for it and then they get a tax bill for more. Exactly. So don't assume that if we have $300,000 on your property, if you think you couldn't sell it for that, then let us know, because if it comes down later in 2 years down the road, you're like, well, I can only sell it for, I got it for sale for $200. Well, I mean, we can look at it then, but if you looked at it and some people just want their value to be higher, but it's not going to help you sell it for more. That's my whole point. Having a high value is really irrelevant to anybody on that respect. They, really most people have no clue what it's assessed for until we send them a bill. So I wouldn't keep with that. I would be happy to look at it in advance of that. And if you sell it for more, great. The market's continuing to change, so I would expect, once we do this 25, if it continues to stay in this manner, we're obviously going to be right back in a similar situation. And that's how a reappraisal works. You put in the values, and then the values completely start to change right after that. That's the real estate market. It's just this is a real estate market.
From the previous reappraisal to now, yeah.
Yes. I mean, we had a huge increase in 2006 and 2007 for sure. That was a lot of new subdivisions. So it was a lot of land value. This is a lot of homes. And a lot of vacant land sales that have never sold before. So people are just, getting rid of property because it seemed like a good time to get rid of it. So it's definitely been interesting, and we'll keep following it. I mean, I don't claim to be a real estate expert by any means. I follow it. So I welcome you guys to have conversations with Tom's wife or any other real estate people for sure. I mean, we've definitely had people. I remember in 21, we had someone say, "I'm going to get a fee appraisal," and then they called us and said, "Never mind, you can just cancel that. I did not expect it to be that you guys were actually under." And we're like, "Wait a minute, now what was this? What was it at now? Can you tell me exactly what the number was?" So yeah, it's interesting. So I just want to prepare people because it is tough. It is very tough, and sometimes unfortunately you can't cut the tax rate enough to cover that difference. But we'll get to that bridge when you guys get to deal with the budget later on. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. So if you got any more questions or anybody else has got any, I'm always available down there. So just let me know. And Darlene's excited because she's got all kinds of projects lined up for that money. All right.
Great presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Kevin's going to talk about some coon hunters.
That's right. This is our favorite.
Reappraisals to coon hunters.
Tonight is the.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Tabitha. Our Coon Hunter Association lease.
Yeah, so we had this conversation earlier. I think everybody's okay with signing another lease. It can only be a 10-year lease with two 10-year options. That's just by state statute. Did include the shooting club into this as well, utilization. Did not include the Division of Aging, but we've moved them to a different site that's a lot better for them as well. So I think everybody's going to be happy. So just want to let you know about that.
Sounds good to me.
So.
There's consensus to have this on the agenda next week.
Yes. And just to kind of, I know we've kind of been loading these department head, reports up. We're kind of revamping the Citizen Academy and doing a virtual. So we're actually going to be utilizing a lot of this YouTube that we've got to make a virtual Citizen Academy where everybody can have a Citizen Academy. So we're going to try to. That's one reason we're doing it. So it'll be a bit longer here at first, but then we're going to get into specific topics of each department once we get through one cycle. So.
I have a question for Logan. Do we have any of the press still with us? Doggone it. This would have been something to write about to give citizens, the public, a heads up. And
Well, I'm sure that Beth will be calling me tomorrow about lunchtime. So if she's listening, I'll be available 12 to 1. And then I go back into my hole. So moving on to other business, we have a need to go into closed session tonight. So if there's a motion.
So moved.
And a second. All in favor? None opposed.
John?
closed. Excuse me. Coming out of closed session, there's no action taken. With no further business, is there a motion to adjourn? A second? All in favor? None are opposed. Good night.